Aloha Jivas, welcome to another day of Bhagavad Gita as it is by A.Z. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. We're reading chapter 2. We're on text 65, which doesn't have a purport, so we'll go from there to 66. Prashade sarva dukhanam hanirasyo pajayate prasanna chataso hayasu buddhi haparya vatishtate. For one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. I believe the threefold miseries it's referring to are birth, old age, disease, and death, even though that's 4 things. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyway, text 66. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya na chayuktasya bhavana na cha bhavyataha shantir ashantasya kutaha sukham. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Purport. Unless one is in Krishna consciousness, there is no possibility of peace. So it is confirmed in the 5th chapter that when one understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer of all the good results of sacrifice and penance, and that he is the proprietor of all universal manifestations, that he is the real friend of all living entities, then only can one have real peace. Therefore, if one is not in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be a final goal for the mind. Disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal, and when one is certain that Krishna is the enjoyer, proprietor, and friend of everyone and everything, then one can with a steady mind bring about peace. Therefore, one who is engaged without a relationship with Krishna is certainly always in distress and is without peace. However much one may make a show of peace and spiritual advancement in life, Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested, peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relationship with Krishna. So I think this really is saying, like, if you know, you know. Like, you can't really explain to someone who, thinks they know what happiness and peace is, what those conditions are in a liberated, transcendental state of being and state of mind. And I'm not claiming to know it myself, but I guess I kind of get a glimpse of the difference when, when I take time to shift my perspective, when I'm in like a disturbed state of mind, and then remember that it's all God, the saying, it's all good. Well, I remind myself it's all God. And so, that helps to shift. So imagine being in that state, like constantly, like that's a perfected yogi. And so I guess unless you experience that, it's hard to believe those kinds of things. But here is trying to explain how it is. Text 67. Indriyanam hi charatam yan mano nuvidhiyate tarasya harati pragam vayor navam evam basi. As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Purport. Unless all of the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, even one of them engaged in sense gratification can deviate the devotee from the path of transcendental advancement. As mentioned in the life of Maharaj Ambarish, all of the senses must be engaged in Krishna consciousness, for that is the correct technique for controlling the mind. Text 68. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvasaha indriyan indriyar te abhyas tasya pragya pratishtita. Therefore, O mighty armed one, whose senses are restrained from their objects, is certainly of steady intelligence. Hang on, let me rephrase that. Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. Purport. As enemies are curbed by superior force, similarly, the senses can be curbed not by any human endeavor, but only by keeping them engaged in the service of the Lord. One who has understood this, that only by Krishna consciousness is one really established in intelligence, and that one should practice this art under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, is called sadhaka, or a suitable candidate for liberation. Our minds are like a child, and when a child is acting out, let's say, having like a temper tantrum sort of thing, because they want something that they can't have. And so as parents, we know to redirect, right? You distract and redirect from that thing that they want. This is like controlling the senses. Our soul and our senses are always desiring for something, and so by directing these senses, directing our thoughts, like we explained before, like the food that we eat, redirecting them in spiritual devotional activities is one way to control the senses. Okay, text 69. Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani shanisha pasyato munaha. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. Purport. There are two classes of intelligent men. The one is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, and the other is introspective and awake to the cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic persons remain asleep in such a night due to their ignorance of self-realization. The introspective sage remains alert in the night of the materialistic men. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling sometimes happy and sometimes distressed in his sleeping condition. The introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities undisturbed by material reaction. Okay, so let's continue. Text 70. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kamakami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Purport. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It's not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady, like the ocean, and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who fulfill desires even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruit of workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace. Okay, there's 2 verses left in this chapter, and so I think I'll save them for tomorrow. This is again, Krishna answering Arjuna's question about, what are the symptoms of a person, who has transcended or has attained a steady mind. I forget the question, but something like that. So this is explaining that one who remains in Krishna consciousness also remains in steadiness of the mind and emotions because they don't need anything. Oh, and the fact that it says here, they know that Krishna fulfills all of your material desires, right? It's not like you are expected to be like a beggar on the street with nothing. There's all kinds of devotees, from the renunciate to the householder, and it is a practice of remembering, that Krishna is my maintainer and protector, and so therefore I surrender. And so that's been my prayer for a long time. I used to have that written on my wall, because it's something easily forgotten when you're going through whatever challenges in life there are. And this is something that's also in the Bible, one of my favorite Bible quotes, which I don't remember word for word, but it's, it says, like, look at the birds, they have no need for anything because even God is providing everything that a bird needs, right? All of the animals who are left to fend for themselves in the wild are doing so on autopilot almost. They are individual sentient spirit souls, but they have limited consciousness, and so yeah, those instincts or whatever, like, anyway, they're all being provided for. Their food, everything in their environment is all there to provide, and they know instinctually how to protect and to care for themselves and their young babies or whatever. So why wouldn't it be the same for us, right? Try to remember that. Okay, hope you all have an awesome day, and see you next time. Hare Krishna.